And so I have this question. It says, where does the church really fit in Black Lives Matter? Where does the church fit?
Where should it fit or where does it fit?
You can say either one. That's good.
It should be at the forefront of the movement. It should be a leader in the movement. I think we are slowly waking up to recognize our position in the movement, but in some cases, to me, like the train has left the building and we're running to catch up and trying to figure out where we belong when we should have been leading it.
Right. And why do you think that is? Do you think the church feels like it's not really their fight, or it is their fight, but not the way we should fight? Why do you think that is?
Well, I know, oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Go
ahead. Dr. Tony Evans helped me with this because I was struggling with the kind of signing on to Black Lives Matter because the idea I was 100%, obviously 100% for, want to support, but it was the organization Black Lives Matter that I was struggling with. And because in the media and the world, the organization and the idea are all mushed together. I'm wondering if some church leaders who really want to be involved haven't teased that out yet. And so it helped me because I was like, okay, yeah, Black Lives Matter, of course, because they haven't for however many centuries and such. But when I go through and look at the organization, which is different than the idea, although they push the idea, then I'm like, okay, I'm not signing on to everything about the organization, although I understand what they're doing. But for the idea of Black Lives Matter, I'm all for it. And I'm wondering if that mushiness in there has a lot of people apprehensive.
I think so. I mean, I was actually confronted with that earlier this week, last week. This is a new week now. My job, because of the Black Lives Matters, they've been doing a lot of equity, inclusion, seminars and talks, and want to hear from you. And one of the speakers that came up and spoke made the reference that Black Lives Matters, and they really connected it with the LBGT population. And it's really becoming such that if you agree with the Black Lives Matters, you agree with this because you're agree and inclusive for all. And so I struggled as a believer because I do know God doesn't like injustice. I think He wants us to fight against injustice. But at the same time, where does that fight begin and end? Is it for Black people because that's the ones that's been oppressed all these years? Is it for all people? And that I believe the train, like Dr. Jones said, mesh. I believe the train has been meshed between adding inclusive and sexual preferences, and with lives and people dying and people being oppressed. And so I struggle with that because now as a leader in my organization, they're telling me I need to be able to speak out and speak up and be a component and proponent of this population, this LBGT population. And I don't know if any of you are confronted with that at all, but it hits me home. It's a giant that I have to fight. I'm like, David, I'm trying to find some smooth stones because I'm not really sure how that fight takes us. Yes, I know as a leader and my position, I have to obey the laws of the land. We say that routinely here. My heart tells me that God wants me to love everyone regardless. And the more I can show them love and still, as the song that Dr. Jones played, and still know who I am, then I can lead them to the way that is right and true, because I still have to uphold myself. David still had to uphold himself when he went before Goliath. He still had to lean on, no, I know the name of the Lord is strong, even though he knew he was facing something that was humongous in his life. And I think Black Lives Matter and the all that it entails now, the organization and all of this matter. And then I think I have a little clip here. Let me see if I can go to this real quick. You might have heard this, all lives matter. Like, why you keep saying Black Lives Matter? And I hear that a lot at work too. All lives matter. It really doesn't take anything from Caucasians, Hispanics, or anyone else to say Black Lives Matter. And I think sometimes we get lost in fights like that, saying, you know, it's really not about us. And that's what helped me in my job. It's really not about me. It's really about, where do I stand and who am I in God's eyes? And what does God desire from me as a leader? And I think if we can get that figured out, we could fight injustice. We could agree with the Black Lives Matter. You might not agree with everything, the forms that they might use, because most of them are peaceful protesters and some aren't. But how do you do that? How do you fit in the inclusion and the connection that's being made now with racial injustice and including other into that group?
So if I could say, I think too many times the church is almost like these other organizations in the fact that they want to force their beliefs on the other party. And so therefore, if you don't believe like I believe, I don't want to fool with you. Homosexuals have a concept of, this is how God made me. You have to accept it. You claim to be a Christian, so you're supposed to love me. The Black Lives Matter is saying, you know, if you don't believe like this, then you really don't care about me. I think what we have to be careful about is the fact that if we are professing salvation and that Jesus is Lord and he loves everyone, that requirement applies to me then too, because I have to love everyone. And it's strange to me how it can be a family member that has a issue, drugs, homosexuality, or whatever, and we will fight for that individual. I dare you talk about my brother. I dare you talk about my sister, my uncle, my father, my aunt, right? But yet we have the audacity then to kill someone else that we don't know. So from the Christian standpoint, we have to be very careful of who really are we representing. Are we because I don't have to like your action,
right?
But I gotta love you.
Yeah.
If I can get past that, if I can get past the fact that that's an issue that you're fighting, we know that it's the spirit, but if I can get past that, I possibly can win you over. But the truth to the matter is, whether I win you over or not, it's not my responsibility for that. My responsibility is to live right in your sight, to live right. And so I don't have to be out front with a sign marching with them, but I don't have to be the oppressor also because I'm not, because I don't believe in it. So that's, you know.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's right. I think our fight is in the fact that love has to prevail regardless. And it has to prevail from a place of intimacy and transparency in us, to the point that we love regardless. We don't accept everything, but we love regardless. And that love has to be what is the connection that holds us together. Anyone else? Awesome.
I totally agree with Elder Greg. We are not to be the oppressor. We are to love. And I know in my job, I'm confronted with this often. And the Lord has given me a peace about it, because for some folks, I'm the only Christian that they see.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the only, and everybody knows that I'm a believer. And so they're looking at me and they're looking to see how I treat people, and how if I'm fair, and if I'm just, and if I'm equitable in my decisions, and how I apply accountability or apply rewards. And it's my job to be just and to be loving in that. And it's not, and they should have no respect of persons, because God doesn't have a respect of persons. And you will find when you show folks love, the Lord will open up opportunities for you to minister to them in ways that you never would have, and to do it in a loving way, because and many times people are hurting. You don't know what they're going through. You don't understand how they got to this point in their lives. Sometimes they don't want to be at that point in their lives, and they will explain to you about certain things that they have struggled with. But I think many times the church already comes through the door with such a upfront, militarized approach to it, that you kill the person before you even get them through the door. Mm-hmm. And the Bible says, with loving kindness have I drawn thee. And so we need to learn to lead from a place of love and kindness, and then let God will do the cleaning. That's not for us to do. And that's what I think we think sometimes that's our job. Let God be God. All he told you to do was love.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean all the time they will change, because I mean, I've been ministering to some people, and some are actually going to churches now. I mean, they haven't changed their ways, but they're going to churches, and I can't judge that. All I can say is I'm thanking God you're moving on. You're making that step, and but it means as a church, we have to be able to fit in, not just with Black Lives Matters, but with all things that are going on even today, and to be able to see ourselves and others see God's love in us. So what about the church staying and voting? Where does the church stand in voting? That's a giant too today.
So I think that's where a lot of the issues that we're facing right now is because growing up, the church did not do their part. I'm talking about the apostolic faith. I ain't talking about
evangelicals.
Martin Luther King and crew, but I'm talking about the and we still have some now.
Mm-hmm.
I know some people right now that don't believe in voting.
Mm-hmm.
It's scary because I'm a Twitter follower, so I speak on Twitter probably almost every single day about some issue. And I think where even in the voting, most of us don't really understand how it works. So that's why it's so easy for us not to participate. So every 4 years, we want to talk about the president, but he's the least of our problem, really. Because if you start at your local,
primary,
you would have more control, but we want to start at the top and try to work ourselves down. And, of course, when the Constitution was written and this, that, and the other, they never thought about a Trump, which is sad. They really thought it was a system that the good old boys could stand on their word. And even though they didn't have us considered in it, we were still existing. And so I think a lot of it boils down to the church taking its rightful place and not just talking church, but talking life. We always, we so one-dimensional that we're no earthly good. And so, it's important that we understand who our local representatives are. who's on the PTA committee and things of that nature, and work our way up. So I believe that the church has an obligation. They have failed their obligation, and they need to get it together. And they need to get it together on by November the 3rd. So if you haven't sent for your early ballots
or mail-in ballot,
listening today, you need to do, because we need to do our part.
Yeah, I mean, that's a giant. We always want to push it like church and state are a separate, but there is no separation. So we have to face the giant, realize that as leaders, the church is really the leader of the world. You're the salt. You're the only thing that makes it savior. Only thing to give it substance, give it taste. And so we have to be willing to understand that and face the giant by being involved, speaking out, and staying connected with it still. And as Sister Ebony said, and always showing love while you're doing it. I don't get into fights with people about voting in politics, because they can get into some heated discussions. And I find some that are really either that way or this way. But as a leader, we still have to face that giant and realize it's still part of our fighting injustice. Anyone else? I love this verse that says, the Lord is with you while you are with him. If you seek him, inquiring for and of him as your soul's first necessity, he will let you find him. But if you abandon or turn away from him, he will abandon and turn away from you. And I think that helps keep me grounded in the fight against my giants, is to understand that I have to constantly seek God. I have constantly be inquiring of him, constantly letting him know that he's my first necessity. And if I do that, I always find him in the middle of every situation, in the middle of every giant, right in front of us, standing right with me. There's God. And so we have to, as leaders, when we face these giants of injustices today, we can face them knowing that God is with us. He's right there. He's not gonna let us go. I'm gonna skip past that one. John the Baptist, leaders aren't afraid to call out the phonies. That's a hard one too, because let me show this and let's see what you say. It's not what you say, but how you say it. We hear that often, right? We've been saying that most of our 10 years at Faith, Hope, and Charity from Elder Hayes. But how many know this gentleman? Anybody familiar with him?
I've seen him, but I can't recall his name.
Apostle Jennings.
Geno Jennings.
Right.
Yeah. Let's look at this little short clip. Now, I'm not saying I agree or disagree, but let's see if it'll play. Does that show up on your screen?
No, not.
I think I have to share.
You have to share, yeah, and make sure you choose the optimize for video and audio. We can't hear anything, Minister.
Oh. So you can't hear that?
No, we can see it, but we can't hear it.
Okay. So I'm gonna skip it then. I'm sorry, because I don't know how to exactly get that sound over on that side. And make sure I'm back on the sharing this one. This one. Okay, so he is a minister, an elder, that constantly has videos out where he's literally fighting against every different things. This particular one, he was fighting, of course, against Tyler Perry and him dressing up like a woman. I wanted to ask you, is that our venue? Is that what this means when they say that we should call out phonies like John the Baptist? What do you think? And it might be hard to answer if you've never heard him.
I've actually heard the clip, and you know, the thing of it is, I think a lot of times we try to include everything in one bucket. Medea is a entertainment, strictly entertainment, but it has some strong messages in it. Now, grandma used to say, you got to learn to eat the meat and throw away the bones. So, you know, is it everybody's taste? No. That just happens to be his venue as far as how he gets a message out. Do I agree with everything that he says? No, but I can separate it. I think, like I say, too many times we try to totally put our beliefs, ideas, or biases, or whatever we want to call them, on the mass, instead of looking what the mass is doing and being inclusive and still holding your ground. Because you can hold your ground and still be in the mass. You follow what I'm saying? You know, it's like right now on the political side, the Burnett's are so mad that he didn't win that their conversation really is, well, I just won't vote for him. If they don't believe in Medicare for all and they don't do this and they don't do that, well, he lost.
Right.
You can't lose and then demand your platform. You all should have got out and voted. And so regardless, but like I tell everybody, you have to be able, you got to sit at the table to have a voice. So I'm saying I don't have a problem with a person not agreeing with someone else's actions, but I do have a problem when they feel that theirs has to be right and the other person's is wrong. That's where I believe just the equal part of life is about. I don't have to agree with you. I can learn to disagree to be agreeable with you and still move on. And so that's where I'm at with him. Yeah, I've heard him, and you know, my thing is I think he's dogmatic on some of his messages. And so then, you know, you always have to look at that as a person turning it off, because I turns him off. So he doesn't win me. So is he really accomplishing anything?
Right. Yeah, that was my thought about him. He really turns me off because it's always like he's fighting. Every message he have is a fight. It's like a hard argument with someone. I don't feel any love. And I'm not saying some of his messages don't talk Bible truth.
Right.
I know, because you go ahead.
I agree. You got to know what to separate, but he do preach truth, and he's boldness with it. With some of us not, but you got to know how to separate.
Yeah, but he can be hard, so hard that I think it turns people off, and so you lose the message of what Jesus desired our gospel to be. Gospel was good news, and I think sometimes his hardness. But I do give him this. He'll stand out against everybody. I mean, he's pretty much got a video out about everybody.
Right.
I want to hop in on this. It may be a bit reductive, but it served me very well, is to add, when people have these dogmatic, very, very militant messages, I have a very simple thing I ask. How much did Jesus talk about what you're talking about? When the white people talk about abortion all the time, how much did Jesus talk about in the New Testament? When black preachers talk about homosexuality all the time, how much did Jesus really talk about in the New Testament? I know what he talked about a lot, and we don't talk about nearly as much as he talked about it. That's It's a little reductive, but it is very, very true. Once you start really paying attention, how much are you talking about what Jesus really talked about? So when these militant preachers, oh, they preaching truth. They preach truth. Really? Are they really? Are they really preaching what Jesus preached? And in the same ratios that Jesus preached it? Let's start asking that question, because it's profound when you really start looking at it.
So using Jesus as our example of what he talked about, even though he did target some of the issues of the day, and we had some of the same issues then that are now, but we know Jesus found his fight more with the church, trying to get Pharisees and Sadducees to act right.
That's exactly what I'm saying. His beef was with us, the pious. That's who his beef. That's who Jesus' beef was with. And if you go further, the people he had mercy on and show compassion to were the same people that we like to put our feet on their neck. Mm-hmm. That's exactly the point I'm getting to. So when we sit up here, I'm preaching truth. Really, are you? Are you really?
Mm-hmm. And we have to still look at what Jesus did, because he did tell them, go and sin no more.
Right. He
made that plain. But I do think sometimes these messages that are so dogmatic and I wouldn't say militant, but the way he preaches is very hard. I heard him talk about he was upset because people are closing their churches because of the coronavirus. He said, you need to open your church, start a service in the morning, have a couple people come, preach real fast, get them out, get another group in. You can have 5 to 10 services in one day, but you don't need to be closing your building. And some people might listen to that and feel like that's the leader, or maybe I can follow that. So I'm just saying to say that there are a lot of voices out here, and we have to know our own. I revert back to what we heard this morning. We have to know who we are and where we fit with that. Yeah, I agree with. I'm sorry. I agree with you, Brother Martin. My husband and I talk about Jennings a lot, because I do think he is very dogmatic about a lot of things that have truly passed by. I think passed him by, but he's still there. But I just want us to see that what type of leaders we out there, and we have to realize what type that we want to be.
I mean, we are responsible for people's soul once we start processing, because if we're representatives of Christ, then at that point we're responsible for people's souls, and we will be held responsible by in judgment if we've done harm to people. So what I'm saying is, have I not preached in your name? Have I not prophesied in your name? Mm-hmm. Depart from me. Depart from me. You've damaged people. You've hurt more than you helped. And we have to keep that in mind as the church in general. Have you helped more than you hurt? And I'm not even asking that rhetorically. Everybody has to ask themselves this. Has your witness hurt more than it's helped people?
Yeah, and has your leadership led more people than it lost? Have you pushed them away, or have you drawn them closer, not to you, but to Christ? Because that's what we're trying to get them to. But sometimes we do fail. Peter failed, and we have to learn to recover from failure. That's part of leadership too, is understanding that there are difficult times. Sometimes it's failure. Thomas Edison said, I have not failed. I just found 1,000 ways that didn't work. Failure happens. And how do you recover from failure when all eyes are on you as the leader? Go ahead. You want the camera on you, hon?
But also, you have to learn that you got to stand for something. Mm-hmm. You got to learn that. When I came into holiness, I had loved 3 and 4 women. What hurt me when the pastor said I couldn't do this no more. So you got to learn to separate, but you got to learn to stand for something else with it.
And meaning what with failure?
By not warning them, by not have the boldness to tell them they're wrong. You got to warn people.
Yeah. I believe a lot of the prophets, especially in the Old Testament, that was their main thing, was warnings to let you know that this is what God said, and this is what is going to happen if you don't do what you need to do.
But Sister Morant, could I agree with what Elder said, but I think it also boils down to each individual knows their strengths and their weakness. And by that, I mean, just because I might not be a dogmatic type individual per se to try to tell you you're wrong, as long as I let you know you're wrong, right, I'm standing. You follow what I'm saying?
Right.
So a lot of times, if you don't do it my way, then, oh, he was a chump, or he was a pushover. No, he got his message out, as Deacon Derek was saying, that how many people did you win to Christ versus running away from Christ? Mm-hmm. How many people, when they see you coming, turn and go the opposite way versus coming to embrace you? Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be that you so much agree with their lifestyle or whatever they're doing, but they respect you enough. And this is when you really know people respect you, when they need prayer, when they call you, when someone can pick their phone up or make their way to come to you. There's been plenty of times Elder Morant has called me in the morning while he's not trying to tease me about LeBron James and say, I was praying for you when I was doing my morning prayer. Do you know how far that takes me into not just that day, but for the rest of the week? Not because we hold a conversation every single day, you follow what I'm saying? But the fact that he cares. So I'm saying where he might be bold in one area and get commended for, my approach might be totally different. It's really the end result. As the Deacon said, when I stand before God, I don't want him to say, yeah, you did all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? You depart from me. I don't want that on my record.
Right. And I have failed as a leader sometimes by not being nice to people. I've failed sometimes as a leader, as a Christian leader, and judging people. And so I had to learn to recover. And that meant I had to go back to some people and let them know, I'm sorry I wronged you. I'm sorry I did it that way. Some people I didn't get a chance to go back to, so it was just between me and God. But we probably have all in our life as a Christian in some ways had to recover from some failures. Some things we could have did better. We could have did different. What happens as we become better in our leadership, there'll be less times where you do it different or don't do it the right way. Because at those times, you're more in tune with God. And if you're more in tune with God, then you're able to go. This is another controversial failure that happened afterwards. This couple here, Jamal Bryant. He had a lot of failure. I mean, big scandalous failures, especially here in Baltimore. But where's he at now? And do you think he was able to get past that failure? And if so, what happened? Because some people think he's still in failure, but let me hear what you say.
Is that his first wife?
That's just said. Just
okay. Said. I haven't I've heard some things. I didn't go dig to see if they was true, but he possibly is still in a state of
that was found out.
A state of what? What did she say?
That was found out to be false.
Right.
Oh, okay. I didn't go research because when I hear this stuff, I run from it now.
Yeah, that accusation was found to be false. But I will say this: a lot of times. So going back to what Elder Morant said, I think a lot of times people can identify with a person that has had the same struggles per se as they did. And so we pick and choose what struggles we brag about. I mean, he was a womanizer. What I mean, that, you know, that's the word on the street per se. And so you know, we want to cast him away, but yet the individual over here that possibly has a drinking problem or a cussing problem or any other issue that could send you to hell, we tend not to beat up as hard. And I think when it comes to true leadership, it is becoming transparent and letting people see your faults and your failures, because then they can also identify with your rise. I mean, too many times we put people on a pedestal that, first of all, they don't deserve to be on. And I'm just saying that across the board with all of us, because none of us are perfect. So, you know, when we realize that, you know, we can, you know, adjust how we look at it at an individual, you know. So, I mean, that would be my take on it.
Yeah, I know. We have to close. I'll let you go ahead. Go ahead.
We also got to learn to forgive. Every one of us, since we've been saved, we messed up. And we had the knowledge not to do it, but we did it anyway. So we got to have a heart of forgiveness.
Yeah, and I think one of the strategies he used to get past some of his failures was, as Elder Greg said, he talked publicly and preached his failure. You know, he just preached it. Yeah, this is what I did. I messed up. This is what I did. And I think there were a certain population that gravitated towards that, whether or not it was because they understood and felt like they had been in that same battle or what. But I'm not judging one way or another, looking right or wrong, but I do know he's come past his failures and move on to another level. So we have to be willing to do the same. Thank you for the discussion today. I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Jones.
All right, thank you, Minister Morant. It looks like you got to come back, Lord willing. I saw you skipped over several slides.
Yeah.
But we had some great discussion. The chat was California wildfire today. Yeah, I saved the chats, so I don't know what we're going to do with them. But you have the option, those that are on Zoom, you can also save the chat and go back and look at that. A lot of great comments in there. And yeah, we have to, that witness part that came out, I think Deacon Derek was, we got to lift him an offering today. He was on it in several instances. You know, when you're a witness in court and they tell you, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth? And to Deacon Derek's point, I think we stopped there and forced the truth on people, but we didn't go to the last clause, which says, and nothing but the truth. We've added all kinds of stuff to the truth and forced it on people. And now our witness is compromised. And so the church, going back to LGBT issues, how can the church puff out its chest about homosexuality when it's allowed all kinds of heterosexual sins to just go by? From pedophilia to rape to adultery, but then we got something to say about a transgender person. Our witness is compromised. So until we come out and say we was wrong about this, and this, and we didn't do it right, and we want to do it right, it's going to be rough for us. And that obviously the whole body can't do that, but us as individuals, us as Minister Moran has been, and Minister Cheryl and Sister Ebony has told us, as individual leaders, that transparency, we got to do it. That grace, we got to show it. That forgiveness, we got to be about it. We just got to do it. We got to be like Jesus. Simple as put. And there's going to be some some bumpy roads, but if we're serious about it, we can do it. So we're looking forward to next week. This has been wonderful. I don't know what happened today. I got to go check the moon phase or something. Everybody was in the chat today. So we will turn things over to Elder George Twilley Jr., and we are looking forward to seeing you all next week right back here. God bless you.
Praise the Lord, everybody. This was a great lesson today. We were excited just trying to keep up with the chats, and then my phone was going off. Everybody was sharing. But excellent. Always great to spend time with our church family. And again, if you ask me, we have the best Christian educators anywhere in the whole world. So we're moving forward and getting ready for today's morning worship service. We are excited to be able to share with us our church family today. We'll be streaming again in those same 3 areas on YouTube, on Facebook, and on our My Video Ministry page through the website. Those links are available in the chat right now, so you can go ahead and grab them. The countdown on Facebook will begin at 11:55, as well as on the My Video Ministry page. And then on YouTube, everything will begin at noon. If you need to remain on the phone, if you're not able to view the services, you can remain on this line through Zoom, and you'll be able to hear today's service right here. So we're going to prepare to dismiss and just say, thank you, Jesus. And we will reconvene at 11:55 for morning worship. Get your sanctuary at your house ready. It's time to praise the Lord. God bless you all.